Hi guys, Adil this side. I welcome you on my YouTube channel Mac Tech Talk. Today we will be discussing ASP.NET MVC Life Cycle. Actually, it is very important if you are working on a technology. It is very important for you or for anyone to know uh, how this technology works, how what are the internal things, what is the internal page lifecycle request, how it goes on, how it gets the request processed, and how the things are working on. It is very important to know to make you work proficiently or more efficiently or or with a good speed on the technology. It is important to know that. So keeping that in mind, I have tried to cover this topic. I have actually tried to cover it in 11 simple steps so that anyone can understand what is MVC App Life Cycle, right? So let's start without wasting so much time. Let's suppose user types in a URL in the address bar of the browser, right? Then what happen? Actually, request come to the IS or whatever hosting types you have opted for, because self-hosting is also have been provided by .NET nowadays, right? So now request comes to IIS. After getting the request, what it does, it hand over the request from pipeline to the URL routing module, which is actually an implementation of iHTTP module under the hood. Okay, then what happen, what it does actually, there is a function called map route. It actually maps the handler to the route defined. While I'm saying mapping of handler, you must be knowing what is a handler. Actually, a handler is, let's suppose I am calling a account.cshtml page, then my server must be having a handler of cshtml types of page. If I'm calling a .aspx page, then my server must be having the handler, like that website configuration of IIS must be having that uh, configuration for handling the ASPX types of requests, right? So these are the handlers. So now in MVC, so every route has been mapped to a handler. So if you sometimes if you are trying to call a page which does not exist, you must be seeing that the IIS server tries to call the all the ASPX, the name of the page with and proceeded with .aspx and .cshtml also. It is because I we do not configure our application to use only one view engine, because by default it uses both of the view engine like ASPX and CSHTML. So it also slows our application if our application is using both and we are not requiring both. We are just using most of the in 90% of the cases we use only CSHTML files, right? So here it maps the handler to the route defined. Now it transfers the request flow of the request to the MVC route handler, which is actually an implementation of iHTTP handler. You must be noticing one point here, like in earlier ASPX forms, there was a HTTP module and HTTP handler, so they are still here in MVC also, but they have been wrapped by the here it is wrapped by URL routing module class. Here it has been wrapped by MVC route handler class, right? So now what MVC route handler do? It actually generates the MVC handler, which is actually a core of all these 11 steps, right? And then it actually its instance is attached to root using map routes in abstract, right? Then it transfers the flow to the MVC handler, which is again an implementation of iHTTP handler. Here I would say this step number 5 is the core of the complete life cycle, right? Here we have a actually it is a request processor, and it actually there is a function called process request in it, which creates controller factory. right? Within MVC handler, you would, if you would be implementing or overriding this MVC handler, you would be finding a function process request in it, which creates controller factory. Okay, now once it creates the controller factory, the duties of the controller factory is to execute or generate or execute a controller, right? Right after creating the controller, there is a function called execute core, calls action invoker. Within a controller there is a base class function execute core, which calls the action invoker, which invokes the action defined in the root, like whatever page, whatever method or whatever page has been requested. So while we are saying root, so then we are saying like right, I believe you get what I want to say, right? Then after flow is transferred to the action invoker, right? Now here onwards from step 7, the process is pretty straightforward, right? So in action invoker, right after action invoker, it calls the pre-action filters, right? It action invoker actually invokes the action, right? And then before invoking the action, it calls the pre-action filters. While we say pre-action filters are the filters which have been executed before the action method. For example, my authentication filter is an pre-action filter because it is executing before my action method. Authorization filter, we can call it a pre-action filter. And then after, the flow is transferred to action method, right? Action method is the core method which we have written in our MVC controller, right? Then the flow is transferred to a post action filters. Now we post action filters are the filters which has been executed after the action method. For example, exception filter is a post exception filter, because if there is any exception occurred in action method, that will trigger the execution of the post action filter, which is an exception filter, right? Then after, flow is transferred to action result. This is step number 11 and the last one of the MVC App Life Cycle. So action result, at this point of time, within the action method, like here, we can define what type of view engine we want to call from here onwards. For example, because actually MVC, latest version of MVC like 5 or MVC 5, provides you an option to create your own view engine. For example, you might be working on CS HTML view engine, you might be working on .aspx engine. Now here MVC gives you an option to create your own view engine, right? So here you can decide, you would be calling that function. There is an interface I view engine, there is actually a complete implementation of it. I will be covering that this portion, calling your own or custom view engine. I will be covering that in my next video. So here in 11 steps I have tried to explain you the MVC app life cycle in 11 simple steps. Hope it helps you. You will find it find it helpful. And if you like this video, if you thought this video is useful, please please subscribe this video, and please share this video with your friends and colleagues. That's all from my side. Thanks a lot for giving your precious time. Bye bye.